So, Save the Children South Africa has embarked on the Adolescent Sexual Reproduction and Rights Project in the Free State to try combat teenage pregnancy. The program also advocates for youth-friendly health productive services as a way of trying to empower young people, if you like, to make informed decisions. Health and Nutrition Thematic Manager Marumo Sekgobela has been part of this initiative, joins us now via our video link. For more on, I guess, the strategy here. Marumo, it's great to see you. Thanks for making time to chat to us, sir. I want to actually begin by, I guess, getting your take on what I imagine is the big debate now, especially on social media, in the back of the figures we've heard in Gauteng around teenage pregnancy. It's interesting to note the wording specifically from government. They want to speak more of sexual education more than sex education. Is that just semantics, do you think, or is there a significant difference there?
Thank you, Ayanda, and good morning to the viewers of Channel 405. First of all, let me appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about this topical issue. And yes, you are right. There's a lot of buzz on social media right now in terms of the stats that we have seen coming out of Gauteng yesterday. And as you correctly put it, the issue between sexual education and sex education, well, one would say there's a question of semantics there. It actually depends on the context in which we are taking it, because as you go deep into it, you will realize that in the end, you're talking about the same thing. What matters is the appropriateness of the message that you send to your receivers out there.
Right. And so as you take part in projects like this, how do you gauge the appropriateness that you make reference to? Among the many questions being asked is, when do you start having this type of education with a child, considering that there are some as young as 10 years old in Gauteng were found actually falling pregnant?
Absolutely. Well, my starting point would be, as Save the Children South Africa, you would know that we are all for the rights of the children across all age groups. And therefore, what that means for us is that we start to engage them as early as the earliest age that you can think of. And what is even more important is that we work with them, we listen to them, we hear what they are saying. Now, what we do in terms of the adolescent sexual reproductive health and rights, we actually engage our young people in terms of a program or project that we call comprehensive sexuality education. That's a method that we use because when you look and unpack comprehensive sexuality education, Ayanda, you would realize that this is where we are talking about age-appropriate sexual education for young people. If you are talking to a 10-year-old, for example, you will talk to a 10-year-old based on the issues that surround the developmental stages of a 10-year-old. And if you are talking to a 14-year-old, you will also speak to the issues that speaks to that age at 14-year-old, because you know what happens at 10 years is different from what happens at 14 years. And similarly, it's different from what happens at the age of 18 and beyond. So the comprehensive sexuality education is just a method which emphasizes the age-appropriate interventions as far as our adolescents and young people are concerned.
And who do you reckon is best poised to actually spearhead that intervention, Marumo? Is it the parents at home? Is it teachers? A combination perhaps of the two? And I'm asking this because it almost feels that both parties expect the other to lead the charge here. And ironically, that might leave children none the wiser.
Absolutely, Ayanda. You see, it's a comprehensive approach. When I say it's a comprehensive approach, I mean it involves all of us. It starts with the parents of the children themselves. They definitely have got a major role to play. It also goes to the children. They've got the rights, yes, as far as adolescent sexual and reproductive health are concerned, and their rights also are also going with responsibilities. It also involves the space where we find our children, on daily basis and in most of the time. The school environment, that's where we find our children. So the school is also involved. The community where our children are found, after school or even before going to school. So it's also involved. Our religious education, religious educators, they are also religious leaders as well as the traditional leaders. They are also involved. So in a nutshell, Ayanda, it is everyone's business to make sure that our young people are groomed well as far as sex and sex education is concerned, as far as sexuality is concerned, such that when they engage with the issues of sexuality, they are engaging them from the position of information. They need to get correct information at all stages of development in their life. There's no doubt in my mind that everybody is involved. It's not about the parent of the child, nor the school where the child is going. It's not the child's responsibility alone. It's the entire community's responsibility that we raise these children in a proper and a perfect manner. But above all, they need to know their rights and they need to respect them, practice them, and also exercise the responsibilities that goes with it.
Right. Interesting, you've mentioned this idea of age-appropriate information several times in our discussion this morning. I watched, interestingly, between you and me, Marumo, as some of my colleagues in the newsroom this morning, when we had this discussion, being almost squirmish, right, when we speak about at which stage you call, for instance, different body parts by their name to your children. It makes me wonder, to what extent is conservatism in a society like South Africa actually hampering our efforts in the fight against things like teenage pregnancy?
And we're talking at the backdrop of a report that was released by the Department of Health. You know, the youngest person that fell pregnant is 10 years. Now, at what stage are we going to let go of our conservatism, you know, if I may put it that way? Are you going to start to talk to your child when she's already pregnant at 10? You are late. And therefore, definitely, we should not fail ourselves as parents. We should not fail ourselves as society by being that conservative. Let us make sure that as it comes, whenever it's appropriate to speak to the child. I mean, we live with children in our household. We can see the type of information that they are exposed to. And we can, for some reason, also hear the type of discussions that they enter into with their peers. So that is an opportunity to kick in and start to talk to them about, you know, the different body parts, if that's the time that you need to talk about them. Such that as they grow, as they go through different stages of life, already they've got that understanding. And there's no better place where the information could come from rather than from you and me, the parents of the child. Whenever they go out and meet with their peers, they will only be validating the information that they also received from home, from their own parents. So they would not be confused. Let's start as simple and let's be as appropriate as we can to our children.
Got you. To be fair, perhaps it doesn't just start and end with conservatism. In some instances, some parents genuinely just don't know how you would approach a conversation like this. Again, from the work that you do, how much of that is part of the big problem?
It is quite a challenge. That is why in the work that we do, we try and bring on board our religious leaders, because that is where you find a lot of our parents, they belong to religious organizations. We bring in the traditional leaders. A lot of our parents, you find them within the organization of the traditional organization. So if we are able to crack it in there and have a common ground as far as our religious organizations and also our traditional organizations are concerned, we are able to have a meaningful conversation with parents about, you know, the appropriateness of engaging our children as far as sexuality health is concerned. So that in that way, we believe that we'll be able to go a long way. So whenever we are then able to engage children through our programming and also with other partners, already the parents are also involved, because when they get an opportunity to spend time with their children back at home, they can also reinforce and emphasize. But most of all, make children comfortable, make them free. Now feel free to speak about whatever topic that they picked during the day. In that way, I can assure you that slowly but surely we will be able to win the battle of teenage pregnancy.
So much of our conversations center around the girl child and ways through which they can prevent themselves from falling pregnant. That sadly, often enough, comes at the expense of missing an opportunity to educate the boy child and also holding the men who impregnate these children accountable for their actions. How are we doing on that score?
Look, unfortunately, the truth of it is that with teenage pregnancy in South Africa, you would also discover that most of the teenagers that fall pregnant are impregnated by older men. In other words, there's that age gap between the girl that was pregnant and I'll call them the men because they've already impregnated somebody, or the boy who has made the girl pregnant. So there is that gap. And by so saying, we are actually saying that, look, let us engage our young people. Not only the girl child, also the boy child needs to know before time, because eventually later in life, this boy is going to make somebody pregnant. That is why even government, as well as ourselves in civil society, we have, embarked on this journey to make sure that all our healthcare facilities, particularly the primary healthcare clinics, in the communities where you find our young people, are what we call adolescent and youth friendly. In other words, the environment is receptive, is accommodative, and it has got all the commodities that young people would need whenever they go and visit such facilities. But most of all, the healthcare providers, you can even start from the security guard who most of the time stand at the gate of a clinic. I'm sure Ayanda, you have gone to a clinic at some place. You will see that the first point of contact is the security, who would try and sort you, ask you where you are going. We want everybody within that facility to be adolescent and youth friendly, such that when our young people comes in, the boys or girls, they are accepted with warm hands. And by so doing, the environment is conducive for them to make proper consultation and have access to whatever information that they want. But particularly our healthcare providers, we want them to do away with the judgmental attitude. Because when a child goes to a clinic and looking for example, looking for contraceptives, it is not for the healthcare worker to tell the child how young they are. It is for them appropriate education that will eventually lead this young child into making an informed decision. But do not be amused to say, at 10, what are you looking for? At 14. Those are unfortunately some of the things that take us away, the challenge of teenage pregnancy.
And sadly, we live in a country where comments like that are viewed as controversial. Marumo, I'm out of time, but very quickly, for parents who want to have perhaps a more active role in leading these discussions in their own homes, and for principals elsewhere who want to introduce these discussions at their schools, how do they engage with the content that you're grappling with?
One of the things that I would encourage parents to do is to reach out to Save the Children South Africa, obviously, through our website. If you go to our website, www.savethechildren, you will find all the relevant information and we'll be able to engage with you. And also parents, take it upon your responsibility to be part of the upbringing of your children, such that whenever there are engagements within communities that are called by different civil society organizations, that are called for government, for example, be involved, such that whatever information that we give to your children, you are also part of it. You are able to make sure that it does really get to be put in good use. So, in brief, we would want our parents to be involved whenever we call them, whether through religious organizations, whether through traditional organizations, wherever we call parents, please come forward. Let us discuss the welfare and the well-being of our own children to stop this challenge of teenage pregnancy. Unfortunately, stats have shown us that it has been ongoing, increasing on a yearly basis. So there has to be a point where we are able to nip it and be comfortable with the situation as adults as well.
Absolutely. 22,000 odd pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, and that's in Gauteng alone. Marumo Sekgobela, thanks very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate your insights today. Marumo is with Save the Children South Africa, and in fact is the Health and Nutrition Thematic Management there. Thanks very much indeed. Manager, I beg your pardon.